in my mind, I was very disappointed, like everyone else, what happened prior to the World Cup in 2002 and what happened to Saipan and Roy coming home. As a football fan and a fan of Ireland, I wanted to see the best team in the pitch. So when I ended up as the manager, it was an issue for the FAI.
Messi back in action, Ronaldo on the bench, and Pele in everyone's thoughts. 32 teams have become 8, and in today's quarterfinals, Brazil face Croatia at 3 o'clock and Argentina take on Netherlands at 7. We're joined on Indo World Cup by former Ireland manager Brian Kerr.
Hey Brian, how's things?
Good, Aidan, yeah, oh well.
Good stuff. You getting a few chores done during the rest day?
Oh yeah, got a few things done, like pay your car tax and even look into a few other taxes that need to be paid at the moment, and generally pay a few bills, and actually wrote a few Christmas cards even today as well. Excellent. A lot of things that I've been neglected over the last couple of weeks for sure.
Good stuff. We won't go into too much detail as to who you sent the Christmas cards to.
No. No need to, just the exceptional people.
Absolutely. Before we get going, I might talk to you about that collection that's behind you between medals and pennants and various things like that. What's going on behind you?
Oh, God. Oh, look, it's just they're just a gang of medals from different tournaments that, they started giving out to managers over the years. There's a lot of things I was involved with. We never got anything for it. If you were a manager, you just have your memories. That's the World Cup medal from Malaysia, 97. That's the European under 16 one, European under 18 from Cyprus. There's one from the third place one there from Norway, under 19, and there's another one, another 18 one in 97. We were fourth in Iceland, actually. That was, and I was UAE, believe it or not, 2003. The under 20 tournament, January 2003, just before I started with the senior one. That one, what's that one? 2002. I can't even read where the tournament was. Gate. I don't know where that was. Anyway, that's what the pennants are. They were from the various matches over the years. Generally, the captains got them, or the best player, or whatever. Some of the officials used to bring them home. But now and again, either Noel O'Reilly or myself might end up getting a pennant from a match if we had a lot of games. And so that's what they're doing. They're just decorating the wall there, covering up a few pictures.
Good stuff. Get a little bit closer to the medals been handed out in this tournament. Back today with Brazil and Croatia and Netherlands and Argentina. I guess Brazil looked very strong the other night, their various dances and all sorts of things to get themselves going. Do you think Croatia will be a bigger test, or how have you felt about Croatia? They kind of stumbled their way through almost to this stage.
Yeah, I don't think Croatia have been particularly impressive. I thought early on they looked like a bit of an aging team, Aidan. But as the tournament has gone on a little bit, they've got better. Stumbled through against Japan with the 3-1 win on penalty kicks in the end. I think Japan were just worn out. But I don't see them being as strong. I don't think Modric has been as influential. That midfield, Kovacic, Brozovic and Modric were getting outplayed at times by Japan. And the front three, Petkovic, Kramaric and Perisic, they're a bit short of the quality that's required, I think, at that level, compared to what's left in the tournament. And I don't really see them. I don't really see them featuring from now on. I think they're fortunate enough to get through as far as they have done. They're not better than they were last time round when they got runners up. That's for sure. The younger players that come into the team haven't improved the team. Lovren is still around, doing all right. Lad beside him, Gavidial, is very promising, 20-year-old. Fullbacks are just okay. Jovanovic and Barisic. But it was the goalkeeper was outstanding for them. He made 3 great saves in the penalty. Livakovic, he was brilliant. But I don't see them I don't see them being a big threat. You know, I don't think they'll beat Brazil.
Yeah. Without getting into it too much, Brian, when you were on the sideline, if a manager had joined in a dance as the Brazilian manager did the other day, would it have bothered you in terms of how much you were taking care of your own players, or would it have been something that would have annoyed you, do you think?
I think when you had the type of the defeat, sort of defeat that Korea had the other day, I don't think as a manager you would have been over concerned about what the opposition were doing. I think you'd be looking at your own team saying, you know, we should have done better, or we'd had better players, or maybe I should have set up the team a bit differently. But you know, I would have always felt as a manager it was never particularly nice if it appeared like the opposition were rubbing your noses in it after the match, or even during the match with over celebration. I heard Tete talking, I think it was in an interview over the last couple of days, and saying, well, that was in their culture, it was in their nature, and you know, he didn't go to it, it was brought onto him, you know, and he got carried in the emotion of it because that's their background, that's their culture. So, you know, I can see why people would be displeased about it, but you also have to look at the fun and enjoyment that's involved and the brilliance of the football that probably led them there. And they're always under severe pressure, Brazil, because there's so much expectation on them because of the traditions and the past and their history of the greatest team, the greatest World Cup team ever, and the biggest numbers of World Cups. So, you know, you can understand there's a certain relief element with the players as well. But, you know, I don't think it's right that they should overdo it, particularly during games. When the game is over, then you can go and do what you like with your own supporters.
Yeah, and just with that history, as you mentioned, I mean, Pele has obviously been brought into, you know, part of the celebrations, etc. The last day. From your own perspective, what kind of, I know he's not gone yet, obviously, but you know, what memories would you have of him? How, you know, with obviously Messi's playing today, etc. Like, obviously different era, etc. But what's your memories of him?
Well, I was in. I was around. There was very little television of 62 or 58. There was nothing that I certainly remember seeing anyway. But in 62, there was little bits and pieces of film around that. Maybe when we went to the cinema on a Saturday and watched Batman, there might have been a bit of Pate News with a few goals from the 62 World Cup when he was, you know, he'd obviously come to a forward of 58 when he scored against Wales. He got a hat-trick against France, a couple of goals in the final against Sweden as a 17-year-old, and it was sensational. But by 62, there was little bits and scraps of film about, but really it was 66 when the World Cup was in England that, you know, you got a chance of seeing them, because it would be hard for people to understand now. There was very little coverage now, very little football, very little football on television. And there was certainly no YouTube or anything like that. But in 66, he basically got kicked out of it. They were playing up in the northwest of England, and I was in London, and I was hoping I'd get to see Pele, but I didn't. But I got to see a lot of the other great players. I got to see Eusebio, who I think were they were in one of those groups up in the north of England, but they eventually came down for the semi-final after they beat Korea in the quarter-final. They were 3-0 down. They turned it round and won 5-3. I think Eusebio scored 4 goals. But I saw Eusebio then in the semi-final against England. So Pele, anyway, was always in our minds. Any little bits and scraps we saw of him, of that power and strength he had, and his brilliance and his all-round play. But it was kind of like the 1970 tournament where we saw him, and we are now on colour television. You could see him in all his glory. And his magnificent, they was in a magnificent team, of course, at that time. And then they wrapped it up in the final with 4-1 over Italy, and he scored that magnificent team goal at the end of a sensational passing move. But they were a great side, and Pele was the man. I got to see him here in Dublin. I think the only time he played in Ireland. Well, it was the only time he played in Ireland. He played for Santos who I think he spent 18 years at Santos, but it was a match between Boa's Drumcondra selection. Again, Santos used to go around on tour around Europe playing lots and lots of games. I think they helped pay the wages and to well, I don't know whether there were any teams trying to sign him from Europe at that time. That didn't seem to be the case. But they used to play an awful lot of matches. And he was I think they were worn out by the time they came to play in Dublin. In fact, they almost lost the match. They won 3-2. But I was there in Day Mount. It was probably about 30,000 people. He didn't do particularly well in the match, but it was kind of exotic to see him in that white gear, Santos and the all white. I think but it was a Boas from Condra selection. It was a half and half in each team. The Condra now gone out of football. They actually went out of the League of Ireland a couple of years after that. But it was the people from Condra, I think, that got him. I think it was Sam Prowell who owned Drumcondra, and Liam Rappel was the secretary, maybe of Boas, and they went over to meet Santos. Were playing somewhere in Europe, and they went to see them and asked them would they come to Dublin. So it was a bit of a surprise, but that was the only time I actually saw him live. But sensational player. His record is extraordinary. I don't have it here, but I have a picture. I have a signed picture of him on a wall somewhere in the house. It was when he was playing America with the Cosmos, New York Cosmos, and Muhammad Ali went, because obviously he had a match and he must have come down to the sideline, give him a hug. And I, at some auction, I managed to buy this picture and I had Pele's signature on it. I don't know whether it's the real one, but it looks the part anyway, and I'm quite happy with it. It's two iconic sporting people in my lifetime, and Pele is very special.
Excellent. Yeah, very good. Great little story. In terms of, I guess, the modern day equivalent, Messi didn't have to cope with this sort of getting kicked out of tournaments like Pele did in '66. Do you think with Messi that it is one of those things that he needs? Obviously, people still consider him among the greatest players of all time. Do you think he needs the World Cup to really cement that, or is that just one of those things that people talk about?
I think it's a thing that people talk about. I think the Argentinian people have now kind of accepted that he's up there with Maradona. I know that Maradona is considered particularly highly, obviously, in Argentina because of the World Cups and because of his performances. But I think them winning the South American Championship a couple of years ago has lifted Messi's status with the Argentinian public, and you can see that at the matches now, how they're cheering him and how they're chanting his name constantly. I don't think in anyone in Europe, I don't think he needs to win a World Cup for people to not alone just compare him to the greatest players ever, but to say he was the greatest players ever. Yeah. I mean, I believe he was the greatest player ever. And we've talked about Pele, and I've mentioned Maradona, but I think for longevity, he's gone almost 20 years now, and it's been sensational. His goals tallies, but also his work rate, his honesty, the fact that he's a team player, his ability to turn matches, and we've seen that with Argentina because the performances haven't been very good, and yet he's turned the games for them. You know, they were struggling against Australia, not much happening at all. Really struggling to find a way. Australia settled into the match and were causing them problems. And then he comes up with that little moment of genius, just after throwing in the right hand side, a couple of little short passes, and he sticks in the net. And it may have been deliberate that he stuck it between the defender's legs into corner, but it was a vital goal in the match when they were struggling. So that ability, I don't think the team is good enough around him for them to win this tournament. I think they're quite limited in the midfield area. I think, DePaul, Rodriguez, even McAllister, the other players that played in the midfield area, I don't think they're good enough to give them the dominance in the game that allows Messi to just wait and wait, as we've seen much more of him now. He doesn't, and he had a great game in the last match. He had a great game, but it's only a little fits and starts and bursts. It wasn't consistent throughout the match. And I don't think there's enough pace in the attacking part of the pitch. To talk about Di Maria coming back now, back from suspension, he'll make a bit of difference. But, he hasn't really got that pace that's required at this level. Maybe Alvarez scored in the last 2 games for them. Martinez has missed chances. I mean, it should have been a lot easier for them against Australia. When Messi set him up twice late on the game to wrap it up and make it easy, and he missed both chances. One he put well wide the far post, the other one he puts easy save for the goalkeeper. And because of that, they end up still of a scrap hanging on late on the match. So I just don't think the rest of the team is good enough. Don't think that defensively the full backs are not great. And even the sports player, Romero, ends up kicking the ball into the stand a few times under pressure from Australians. So, but look I think like everyone else who loves the game and admires brilliance and has admired and taken the joy we've all taken from his performances over the last 15 to 20 years, would love to see it happening for him. And I am one of them. I have absolutely loved Messi.
Do you think they'll have enough today or against Netherlands?
Well, Netherlands have been they've been kind of under the radar a little bit, depending on Gakpo. I said before the start of the tournament, I didn't think I thought it was over reliance on the pie to score goals, and he's an outstanding goal scoring record for the national team. He was out injured the first couple of games. They brought him on late in the games. They've done enough, but Gakpo has risen to the challenge. They've been very, very solid indeed. De Jong in the middle of the field, the 3 centre backs, Ake and Timber and Van Dijk have done very well, prepared to sit in, play on the counter attack. They mixed up the team a little bit. The wing backs have been good. The Vries and Blind both scored, and don't get upset by sitting in and playing on the counter attack. So it would be very interesting with Argentina, because Argentina are kind of similar. They want the opposition to come onto them and play on the counter a bit and get Messi on the ball when there's space. They found great difficulty when the team sat in against them. Argentina, I think the Saudi Arabia match, and they sat in and they played on the counter and just blocked the pathways, the passes into Messi and stopped them getting on it. So it'll be interesting to see how this is played out. But they certainly, the Netherlands have found form. They have a system. A lot of criticism in the Netherlands from former players about it's not all easy on the eye and all that. But, they've got some great goals and they've a very solid team. I think they could beat Argentina.
Interesting to say. Just before I let you go, Brian, you obviously came into the Ireland job with Roy Keane on the outside and reintegrating him into the team, etc. I just wanted to get your view around Ronaldo in terms of, he's been left out now and, potentially might come back in at some stage. Do you think, in terms of Fernando Santos, in terms of the manager's role in this, do you think he's talking to senior players? Do you think that is it just him and his assistants making these decisions? What way would you see the process in that? Like, or is it just between him and Ronaldo? And in your instance, who did you speak to before Roy Keane came back into the fold?
Well, there's a lot in that. I've dealt with Santos first. He's a very, very experienced manager. He's been around a long time. He's been, I don't know how many years in Portugal. He's 7 or 8 years with the senior team. He's had success. They've won the European Championships. They've won the Nations League. And Portugal had never won anything before. They were always one of those countries with great players with potential, but couldn't get it across the line to win anything. And but he got that job done. So I think Ronaldo was very much part of that. Ironically, he missed the final when they won. When he was out, he got hurt early in the match, and he ended up on the bench encouraging the team. And it appeared like he was almost taken over from the manager, but I don't think that was the case. I think Santos is a sure boy. But I think who did he talk to, or why did he make the decision? I'd say he just as he was assessing that he didn't think Cancelo was the right choice for the last match, and he played Guerrero, and Guerrero scored a goal and played particularly well. I think he's a very good player. The Dortmund player I've always liked Guerrero, but just as he made that strong decision, and he's juggled around the midfield a good bit as well. He's used the squad very well. I think that proves that he's never been one who shirked away from making the tough decisions. He obviously felt Ronaldo was valuable and needed to play up until now. He's looked at his performances with Manchester United and said he's not doing enough. I didn't think Portugal would do that well in the tournament because I think about them when they played against Ireland, and we almost got something from the match in the away match. Ronaldo comes up with 2 great goals late on. Then they come here and they have to play Serbia next match. He leaves out a couple of players and they didn't play very well. It's 0-0 draw. And I looked at them and said, they have outstanding players who are at top level clubs, Champions League players. And yet the sum of the parts didn't work out being particularly good. I thought they were quite average, and they had serious deficiencies. The fact they're still playing Pepe, and he's 39, playing centre half, and you can exploit the spaces down behind the full backs when Pepe plays, even with Diaz. So, he obviously decided that they might get something more out of it by putting younger players on. He's played Horta, and he scored in the last game, even though they were beaten. I know he changed a lot of players and rested them in the third game in the group, and they lost. But I admire him for making the decision, and as it turned out, it's gone well for him. He's won 6-1. They played outstanding football, beautiful. So, and Bruno Fernandes and the rest of them look better to me without Ronaldo playing, because Ronaldo often spent a lot of time in that static position in the centre, waiting on things to happen without being part of any pressing process or working spectacularly hard to get the ball back or to counter press off the opposition. Whereas when he's played these younger players and new players, and Ramos comes in the other night, you can get more out of them. And that was the reward the other night in that performance. So I'm sure he talked to his assistants. I'm not sure whether he talked to Ronaldo about the decision he was going to make. Maybe he did. And, you would think he would probably have to. And Ronaldo doesn't look like he's very happy about it. Going on the Roy Keane one, who did I talk to? I always had it in my mind, I was very disappointed, like everyone else, in what happened prior to the World Cup in 2002 and what happened to Saipan and all that, and Roy coming home. And as a football fan and fan of Ireland, I wanted to see the best team in the pitch. And so when I ended up as a manager, and shortly after, it was an issue for the FAI in terms of when I talked to them. I had an interview for the job. First I met Brian Hamilton. He was making a short list. And that was one of the questions he asked me, was how would I deal with the situation and what was my view on it. And I told him, and then I had an interview with I think it was a 5-man committee, and I was asked the same question, and I told him how I deal with it and what my intention to deal with was to go and see Roy and talk to him, because I wasn't involved in what happened in the lead up to Japan, Korea, to the tournament. I wasn't involved. I wasn't part of it, and I felt an obligation to put out the best team on the pitch for Ireland. And if Roy was still good enough, I should attempt to get him out to play. But if he didn't want to play, well, I was prepared to accept that and work with the players. But as regards anyone else being involved in the decision, I made that decision myself. But I told other people what I was going to do. The ones I had to tell, obviously Packy and some of the staff who stayed on, Packy Bonner, and some of the staff who were staying on, who had been part of the World Cup in 2002. I did feel it was only right to tell them. I did speak to some of the players as well, who some of the senior players who I thought deserved the respect of knowing my intention, and I explained why, and they were happy enough for it. I don't really know. I didn't really mind. It wasn't, that was my job to make that decision on behalf of the soccer following public of Ireland. So that was how I went about it, and it eventually worked out. It took a bit of time, but eventually worked out, and he came back to play a few matches, and the players accepted that, and there was no. I didn't get a sense of any ill feeling. If that's what you're wondering, how players react to someone come back in who has been out, I didn't get any sense of any ill feeling at all within the group.
Those players will always take things that make the team better, almost always anyway.
Yeah, except if someone's losing their place to someone that's coming back, they might be too happy. I mean, at the time, if like I suppose it was Mark Kinsley who replaced Roy in 2002, the middle field with Matty Holland, and Mark was brilliant in that tournament. But the players around that area of the pitch might have said, "Well, Roy's coming back." That's me stop me being in the first 11. But I think in general, the players would have said he's a great player and we need him, and we can. And it was a different setup. He was obviously coming back into a different setup. But I was doing things a bit differently to the way Mick and Ian Evans had been doing it. I had Chris Houghton with me and Noel O'Reilly and Packy was still working me. So we were doing it a bit differently. So, I think everybody accepted that if he came back and played and added a bit to us, which he did. I mean, he was brilliant when he came back. It was just unfortunate we didn't quite make that World Cup either. We didn't make it to Germany. It was a tough group, and fine line stuff on the results, and a little bit unfortunate on the run of the ball in the France game here, which we lost 1-0, which was the only match in the group we lost. But anyway, Roy missed that one, actually, missed the game. But, I think it was the right thing to do. With Portugal now, I'm sure if Santos thinks it's the right thing to do to put him on in the match, but he can hardly leave out Gonzalo Ramos after what he did, scoring that brilliant hat-trick.
Brian, that's been brilliant. Thanks very much for your time and insight.
It's a pleasure, Aidan. We'll speak again soon, okay?